The title of our today's part, the second part of our today's class is Could Anything Stop a Global Language? Any discussion of an emerging global language has to be seen in the top political conference of global governance as a whole. In January 1995, the Commission on Global Governance published its report, Our Global Neighborhood. A year later, the Commission's co-chaired Siddharth Rampal commented. So in 1995, a global commission for neighborhood was established, and there was a president of that committee, and her name is Siddharth Rampal. He commented that there were, for the most part, people who were pleased that the report had engaged the central issue of a global community, but they took us to task for not going on in as they thought in a global way to call for a world language. They couldn't see how the global neighborhood, the global community, which they acknowledged had come into being, could function effectively without a world language. So this Commission of Global Neighborhood recommended that there should be a global community. People living in this world will be living together, but they found a risk and the problem in this global community. They found that this global community will be impossible without a global language or world language. A neighborhood that can only talk in the tongues of many was not a neighborhood. If 1,000 people live in a village, and if they speak in 2 or 3 different languages, that cannot be called neighborhood. So neighborhood, all the neighbors will be speaking in one language. And they were right in one respect, but they were wrong in that sense that we have a world language. So yes, it is not always be possible that the people living in a community will be speaking in one language, but for the presence of world language, they will be speaking themselves in their mother tongue, but when they will be speaking their neighborhood, they will be using their world language. Sorry. And it is not the language of imperialism. It is the language we have seen that has evolved out of a history of which we need not always be proud, but those legacies we must use to good effect. And at another place, he comments, there is no retreat for language as that English as the world language, no retreat for an English-speaking world. So a strong political statement of this kind immediately prompts the question, could anything stop a language once it achieves a global stage? So there is no uncertainty that English has been the global language. But a question comes in the mind of all people of the world that will English be in global status forever? The short answer must be yes. Yes, English will be the global language forever until many centuries. It is the short answer. And if language dominance is a matter of political and especially the economic influence, then a revolution in the balance of good power could have consequence for the choice of global language. The second question is more tough, using several ifs, because we have discussed early that why a language becomes a global language. We said that the power is important for becoming a global language. And in that connection, we had also been discussing that Latin became the global language for the power of the Roman Empire. And Greek became the global language for some time, not for the power of Aristotle and Plato, but for the power of Alexander the Great. So we have discussed. So the global language will be linked to the power. What sort of power? Political, economic, and cultural power. But the two first powers, that means the political power and the linguistics power, is very important. Yes. So if the political and the economic power moves to the other language country, what does it mean? It means that if political and economic power moves from English speaking country to China speaking countries, then there is a possibility of attacking the status of English language as the global language. There is no shortage of books, chiefly within the genre of science fiction, which foresee a future in which, following some cataclysmic scenario, the universal language is Chinese, Arabic, or even some alien. Okay. So fiction, that means we can imagine that one day global language will be Chinese or will be Arabic, or even there might be some other language we don't know the name of this language. That means a alien language. It might happen for the cause of two powers, that is the political power and the economic power. Cultural power is the third category. But to end up with such a scenario, the revolution would indeed have to be cataclysm, and it is difficult to speculate sensibly about what it might be. So we have to think very sensibly. Why we will be thinking? Because what would be the next global language based on this thing? A country's language plan is established. And for this reason, we have to think the status of global language very sensibly. A smaller scale of evaluations in the world order would be unlikely to have much effect, even given that, as we shall see in the later chapter, the English is now so widely established that it can no longer be thought of as owned by any single nation. One point, that is, English will not be the global language, and some other language will come. The main weapon of English language, or the main competence of English language nowadays, that English language has been spread all over the world. So who is the owner of English language? Nowadays, everyone of this globe has been the owner of English language. Even we can understand the Indian accent. So Indian English language accent is quite different from Australian, American, or the British English. That means Indian English has got a special position based on the pronunciation and something else. And even in case of the writings, literature, or some other fiction, the people living in India, scholars, R.K. Narayan and N.C. Chaudhary, Neeraj Chaudhary, all are born and brought up in India, but they have written their literature in English language. That means if whom we will be calling the English speaking people, if it is so that T.S. Eliot was born in America, but in next time he settled down in UK and he became the member citizen of UK. So in such a way, so English language is learned by the people living of the other parts of the world in so good way that they not only can speak English language, they can produce literature, they can produce science fiction, they can produce novels, they can write, produce many periodicals, journals in English language. So if it becomes the parameter of writing a novel in English language, let's make it more clear. If I can write an English novel, will be it called that I am the owner of English language? That means my mother tongue is English. If it is the condition, then many people were born in India, brought up in India, and even in Bangladesh, they have produced English novels. Okay, so the scenario is now common, and for this reason, English language has been everyone's language of the world at present. So it is tough to have other language as a global language. This is the first scenario. A rather more pleasurable scenario is that an alternative method of communication could emerge, which would eliminate the need of a global language. Okay, so alternative method of communication, we know written communication, oral communication, and virtual communication. That means email, fax, phone, and machine detectable, audible communication like that. The chief candidate here is automatic translation, that is called machine translation. You will be speaking in Bangla language. That happens in United Nations general meetings and proceedings. One person will be speaking in one language. The machine can translate in the desired language. Especially many of the software nowadays can do so, that you will be speaking in Bangla and simultaneously the machine and the software will translate your Bangla speech in your desired language. It may be in English or other language. So the possible translation, one important thing of learning global language is necessity. If the necessities are done by the machine, that means the translation. In case of a translation, most probably you haven't forgot that, you know, for the translation, one thing is that the budget is our chief weapon for translation, and also for some person who will be speaking in other language. But if machine can do so, machine can easily translate your language. So when the necessity of learning global language will eliminated by the presence of machine, that might a possibility that people will not interest to learn English language. They can easily translate that with the help of their computer or the software, and they will not learn the global language. In such a way, one day global language will lose its status. That is another supposition. It might happen in future. If progress in this domain continues to be as rapid as it has been in the past decade, there is a distinct possibility that within a generation or two, it will be routine for the people to communicate with each other directly using their first language with a computer, taking the strain between them. So if it is the scenario, they can communicate with other language with the machine, with the help of machine. This state of affair can already be seen to a limited extent on the internet. where some firms are now offering a basic translation service between certain languages peers. Then is simply you can put your language. Okay, so as you can see a little bit here that most probably you have, it is not necessary to show you the slide. That you know the Google translation, is it? Simply you can write your text and easily that will be transferred in Bangla language. Okay. So that is called machine translation. Already it has been started. The need for post editing is still considerable. However, as translation software is currently very limited in its ability to handle idiomatic and stylistics and the several other linguistics features. Okay, some idiomatic expression are there um, in every language. So machine translation can translate the idiomatic expression. And naturally, in our language, there is called Bagdhara. Okay, and such kind of expression, machine translation uh, cannot translate it properly. And if it is so, the translation the machine will make to you, you will start laughing to hear that. Okay. Uh, and for this reason, such kind of translation is not possible, it's still not uh, invented by the software engineer that a language will be edited or translated in the proper way. And when it will be not be translated in proper way, so edition work will be done, and that is a massive task, edition work. So these are the problems of having software translated language. Similarly, notwithstanding the remarkable progress in speech recognition and synthesis which has taken place in recent years, the state of the art in real time speech to speech automatic translation is still primitive. There are two kinds of translation. One is word to word, and another is reading something, understanding the thing, and then can translate it. That is called the two types of translation. But a thematic translation on, and another is word to word translation. But the word to word translation is a very primitive form of translation. And thematic translation, it is gonna in a wave of inventing, but very soon it might be recovered or invented by the software engineer. The Babel fish inserted in the ear, thus making all spoken language in the galaxy intelligible, so in no more than an intriguing concept. So such kind of concept we can see. The currency and the speed of the real-time automatic translation is undoubtedly going to improve dramatically in the next 25 to 6 years. So such kind of translation will be there. And during this time frame, all the evidence suggests that the position of English as a global language is going to become stronger. Okay. And the translation and dramatically in the next 25 to 50 years, but it is going to take much longer before this medium becomes so globally widespread and so economically accessible to all, and that is poses a threat to the current availability and the appeal of global language. So the machine translation that we have discussed, the possibility of having thematic translation and the word-to-word translation, especially the thematic translation. So, and such kind of translation needs the presence of internet, use of computers. For the cause of the economic constraint all over the world, people are people can't use computer, people can't use laptop or computer for the cause of economic constraint. And if it is a scenario, then the translation cannot be a alternative solution for global language, and the translation cannot be a threat for the status of the global language. By the time automatic translation matures as a popular communicative medium, the position will very likely have become impregnable. So English language up to that will be the global language. It will be very interesting to see that what happens then, whether the presence of a global language will eliminate the demand of the world translation service, or whether the economics of automatic translation will so undercut the cost of the global language learning that the later will become obtuse. So such kind of thing will be out of use. It is not necessary that you will have for the global machine translation. It will be an interesting battle 100 years from now. So such kind of machine translation scenario will occur in the next time. So the status of global language might be hampered for the cause of one first cause, that means the economic and the political power, if it becomes shifted to some other country. And another thing is that there is the possibility of having machine translation. But for every cases, we see that it will take many time that the English language and some other reason that at present the English language has been the language of the people all over the world. In which way? Because they have learned the complacency, they have learned the English language in such a way that they can not only use English in their oral communication, they can make English language easy for written communication as well as for writing creative literature like novels, poetry, and the other fields of literature. So there is a risk that English language will not always be the global language, but the threats are, there is the machine translation, economic and the political power, and the another one that we have discussed, that is that English language now has been owned by the people all over the world. So such kind of ownership might not be eliminated in a single generation. So it might be a issue of debate that how many years, how many centuries English will be the global language. So next time we will see that what will happen for the status of global language. We have discussed some issues as the threat of global language.